Welcome to Embrace, Love, and Thrive, Navigating Resilience Through Self-Acceptance. I'm your host, Charity Marahomsar, your life doula. Today, we embark on a journey to explore the transformative power of self-acceptance as not only a source of resilience, but also an anchor for giving love to others. Have you ever wondered how embracing oneself and really embracing oneself fully can create space for giving love to those around us? Join us as we delve into this profound question and much more. Our conversations will uncover insights, stories, a little bit of strategies that illuminate the path to resilience through the lens of self-acceptance. Are you interested to hear more about our guest's journey towards self-acceptance and love? Today, we are so privileged to have with us someone who didn't just survive life and all its challenges, but continues to thrive. Again, I met her exactly around 3 weeks ago when we did the Camera Confidence workshop. I always say, I believe in this. Right place, right time, right people. And I met this incredible human being named Elora Picson. She was so humble not to even mention her last name. But the minute she mentioned her last name, Elora Picson, I only know of one Picson. I mean, not like we're close, but I know of one Picson in my life, and that is the person, the voice that probably a lot of you know. If you are in my age and generation group, you probably have heard of Ed Picson, the famous basketball, and later he became a boxing. So Ed Picson is someone very, very important to Elora's life, and we will discuss that much, much later. One of the beautiful things that I learned from Elora is really not changing one's look, but accepting. Elora, I didn't even know and notice, I told you this the first time we met, and I kept telling you the whole time, that you have this birthmark. Can you tell us a little briefly as to how this has really, impacted your life from childhood to adulthood?
Yeah, so with my birthmark, actually, I believe from my parents' stories, it wasn't even there when I was born. It wasn't until when I was in school that my parents noticed that something was forming. And then actually, when I was in, I think, first grade, I actually got into an accident and hit my head on a cabinet with a glass door. So that added to that. And that was actually how I saw myself growing up. I would always say parang I was already fat, but then someone up there just had to add a birthmark to make it even worse. And I felt like I was cursed for so long. Very early, a doctor told me that, oh, when you turn 18 years old, we'll have it taken out.
Taken out, meaning the
with a
birthmark.
laser.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And I was so looking forward to it. Now, it doesn't happen so often anymore. I think because we are like the woke generation where, we're teaching people that it's not proper to ask questions so blatantly. But growing up, it was really an issue for some people. Like, they would really come up to me and literally ask, like, what's on your face? And I would get so defensive and tell people like, oh, it's a birthmark, but don't worry, when I turn 18 years old, it'll be gone by then. I started forgetting about it later on. I don't exactly know how it happened, like the evolution of my acceptance of my birthmark, until about when I turned 18. there's still that hope of like, I hope I see that doctor again. So they say it again. And then when I started doing body acceptance in 2011, I was primarily focusing more on my body more than my entire look. I guess that was when I was starting to like forget that the birthmark was actually there. But yeah, I really went through my teenage years hiding it with bangs that can't even exist on my head because I have really curly hair. So they get really frizzy on my head. So as in, there was a time when like I cut my own bangs and my mom was furious because I was trying to hide it. But around when I was 23 years old, I did a photo shoot with a friend, and this was part of my body acceptance journey where I was, there were really photos that I didn't like looking at. And there's one particular photo that showed the entire map of my birthmark. And I was so tempted to delete it. And then I said, nope, I can't. And then suddenly I just started writing about it. And then midway I was crying, and then I looked at myself in the mirror and I cried even more. And then, yeah, that was the whole acceptance of my birthmark. Later in life, my mid-20s, a doctor actually did come up to me and say like, hey, I want to give you a free laser treatment for your birthmark. I think they had like a new machine that day, and she was practically forcing me into it. And I was saying, oh no, it's fine. Thank you so much for the offer, but I'm fine. Like I don't want to get it out. I don't need to take it out. And she couldn't accept it that I had already accepted myself. But yeah, ever since then I just stopped resisting, and it really, I forget that it's there a lot of the time. I really do forget that it's there.
Now, this story of Elora is very important. In the cancer space community, I say we because at some point I thought of, but it was really a very, very short point. If I was going to do stuff to reconstruct or to change the way I looked, especially when this very visible scar came. These are little things for some people, but to a lot of women, they are big. They are huge. And the common dialogue of cancer patients and even survivors, they go through a phase where they literally cover mirrors at home because they don't like what they look. And I was just counseling a male cancer survivor 2 weeks ago, where his cancer was on the face, and because of radiation, it left a very dark mark on his face, and he's very bothered by it. And when I asked him what area in his life can I help him with, the answer was, how can I get rid of this mark? Because it's really making me so uncomfortable. And if there is below 0 on confidence, I'm there because of this. Because I can never meet someone without having to ask, what's on your face? Right? So this is the reason why Elora is here. Because in the cancer community space, we struggle a lot with body image. And more than that, when cancer really changes your life, there are limitations that you cannot do. Self-acceptance becomes a challenge. So that is the reason why I was inspired to invite Elora. Now, Elora has been doing this whole advocacy on body acceptance. And in another podcast, you will meet someone with the same advocacy, but I decided to talk to them separately because Elora is also the founder of
Fat Girl Glow.
I love the name, Fat Girl Glow. I wish I met you when I was 30 plus, when that was a big issue for me. What really prompted you to start your own community?
To relate you just said, I wish I had myself when I was a teenager. That's actually something that I teach people, to be the model that you never had growing up. Because it's so easy to, to look through magazines and now on social media to wish that you had this body and this body without really realizing that you have your own body, right? So why not focus on what you already have and love what you already have? Be your own model. Stop trying to look for someone that you can relate with, because your body is already waiting for you to give love to it. So with Fat Girl Glow, it started out with photography. I was very much in love with photography, and I started taking photos of my friends, and that's when suddenly they would look at the camera and say like, how is this me? I don't feel like I see this person in the mirror. That kind of started my whole photography journey, where I was like, oh, I want to take photos of people, rather than the other subjects that other photographers go for. It was really focused on making people feel good about themselves. But then something clicked in me when I realized I was focusing so much on other people's journey rather than my own. I was already going through body acceptance. I was already learning it through blogs and videos and what have yous. I didn't realize I wasn't focusing on my own healing, on my own love for my body. I was really, telling people, no, you are beautiful. Look at yourself. And that's also when I realized, like, I can stand by your bed every morning, and when you wake up I would tell you you're beautiful and you won't believe me. One, you'll be freaked out because I'm beside your bed. But two, it's really hard when people tell you you're beautiful. We've been taught to not believe it. We've been taught not to even think about ourselves as beautiful people. I started telling my story on social media. I started posting photos that were very vulnerable to me. I would show hair from my underarms. I would show my cellulite. I noticed with Filipinas, we're so aggravated by our arms. So I would post photos of my arms that I never really cared about how big it was. I'd post half nude, probably, almost, and just tell my story. It didn't have to be so complicated. Just really told them how I feel. Just really wrote how I felt, and every time I'd post it, I felt like no one's gonna believe it. Like, no one's gonna read this. Number one, it's so long, and number two, maybe no one cares. But then, suddenly I would wake up the next morning and I would get so many messages from people saying like, thank you so much for sharing your story. I don't feel so alone anymore. I was really also focusing on the fact that when I started creating my brand, I knew I wanted the word fat in it. It's actually inspired by a different brand called Fat Girl Flow from the US. The first time I saw it, I thought it said glow. And I was like, oh my god, that's the most beautiful name I have ever heard. And then I sent it to my friend who lived there. So I wanted her to buy me merchandise from that girl. And then she said, it's not Fat Girl Glow, it's Flow. And I was like, I'm getting it. So, and then now people ask me, like, is it only for fat girls? And I tell them it's not just for girls, number one. It's not only for people who are fat. And that's how I came across body empowerment photography, where it don't necessarily have to be fat, because I learned that a lot of people, no matter what size and shape you are, really do have their own issues. So, yeah, it really is just body empowerment and giving love. And if you're not ready to give love to your body, at least accept it for what it is talaga.
You see, this is really where it really hits home for Better Days community, because we even have members who refuse to wear anything that would allude that they have cancer. This is a valid feeling. People try to avoid even getting that impression that they are sick. And that is not so far from the story of Elora. Like, I have a client who called me and who asked me, what can I wear tomorrow? Because my hair is thinning, and if I don't wear anything, people will know I have cancer? Should I wear a bandana? And my answer was, it's summer. If you wear a bandana now, people will ask, why are you wearing a bandana? I said, why can't you just fix your hair and let people notice that it's thinning? If you don't want to answer their question, then don't answer your question. So this is very similar to your story. I see so much parallelism in the journey of your advocacy, Fat Girl Glow, vis-a-vis what we as cancer patients and as cancer survivors go through. Like, you go through a phase where your body drops the weight and you're so thin, right? And they don't even want to be photographed. And this is where I really got that inspiration from you, because during the camera confidence workshop, a lot of people there did not even know how to pose. But you have this incredible gift of just getting people in the mood, and they are even surprised that they could pose that way. And to me, it was the whole process that was very liberating. So my question is, where do you get that? I mean, how do you know what to say to someone? And most of these people, all 15 of them or 13 of them, you met for the first time.
It comes with me being very observant. Number one, I really love hearing people's stories. And I try to relate that to taking photos. Like, I remember I asked someone, could you raise your arms? And then she told me, I don't want to because my underarms have turned dark because of radiation. And I said, okay. Luckily, she had long hair, and someone suggested, like, okay, what if you put your hair above it? And I could really tell that she was very insecure to follow my action. But then when she suddenly did, she wouldn't stop. She wouldn't even put her arm down anymore.
I know.
You know who you're talking about. And it's beautiful when it happens, because I tell them, listen to your body. How does it want to move? Someone asked me at a different workshop, at the same topic, but she asked me, she said, Elora, I follow you on Instagram, and I tried to do my own photo shoot at home. And she said, I literally had your Instagram open so I could copy your poses. And I felt like I looked so stupid. I said, well, did you listen to your body? Were you comfortable even when you were doing the poses? And she said, no, it felt kind of like rigid, and I didn't feel like I was being, true to myself, or some along those lines. Yeah. That she felt awkward. I said, if you feel awkward, then change. You are allowed to change. Because maybe that's not what your body wants to do. This is what I tell people, right? Like, your body has gone through so much, things that you don't even know, things that you are aware of. So why would we think that our body in its existence wants us to feel ugly or look bad? Your body is fighting for you every single day, harder than you have ever fought for it. So what if you just give it that, if you're doing like a selfie shoot at home, you place the camera in front of you, what if you just sit there and just let it move? Let it reach your arm, reach the sky, reach wherever it wants to go, right? And then, why don't you just stretch? Why don't you just dance? When was the last time you danced in front of anyone, or even just for yourself? And then, take the photo, and you'll be so surprised by how your body wants to look. And then, if you feel awkward, change. Go to the next pose. If you feel like it feels good, if you felt like you finally got that knot out of your body because you stretched so high, then look at the photo. You'll be so happy. You'll find yourself smiling. You'll find yourself with closed eyes because you're thanking your body.
Oh my God. The minute the cancer warriors and survivors started posing, parang it will take us like a lot of nudging for them to leave the the backdrop
Yeah.
so other people can. So you spent like a good 15-20 minutes just
Yeah.
getting them all warmed up. Alor, I want to really, with your permission, talk
Yes.
about this.
Mm-hmm.
When we invited you, we didn't know you were a love giver. When you came to the community center, you never even mentioned it to the people you were meeting with. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. You only shared with us that you were a love giver to the famous Ed Picson, your dad. Can you tell us a little bit about that, if you may?
So there really is an age gap, of course, like a huge generational gap between me and my dad. So I just got used to people around my community not knowing who my dad was. But then also there's that humility when I tell people who my dad is and they're suddenly telling me that they're fans and all that. I guess my dad just never really put us in that light. I'm very proud of my dad and everything that he achieved while he was with us. I will never ever downplay what he has done, but I don't know. He really taught us humility. That's what Better Days has done for me as well. To give highlight to love givers. I remember when we were planning the workshops, it didn't even really cross my mind that I would tell people about my dad. It wasn't until the week that I was preparing for the workshop, as in like 5 days before the workshop. I remember they were asking me, could you send the deck in advance? And I kept saying, yeah, I'll send it tomorrow, until like the night before. I was like, I'm sorry, I'll just present it tomorrow, because I was still making the deck, because I just kept crying and crying and crying. And I couldn't finish it. And then I did the whole big reveal nga, that to say that I was a love giver. It was also because of, people who were attending, love givers who were attending. I remember when we were planning, Sophia had actually asked, like, are we still putting focus on the thrivers and warriors and love givers? And immediately, without me thinking, I said, I think so, because I want love givers to know that they are still loved. Even if they are the love givers, they are still loved and they are worth celebrating alongside the people who they give love to. So that was the story of that. I didn't expect that when I did my big reveal, I would still cry, because I was already like 3 days straight crying. But I'm very glad that I did.
I want to capture that story where you talk to us about your dad being diagnosed, but it was really short lived. Can you tell us how many days from diagnosis?
Yeah, so it was around 42 days after diagnosis. Apparently, they were saying that the development of the sickness was probably like 10 years.
Yeah.
But the symptoms had really became visible about 3 to 5 months prior to diagnosis. I remember thinking, like, because once you're diagnosed, I mean, cancer has really had such the worst, I mean, for good reason, that the worst effect when you hear that word, right? So we didn't even think about impending loss. I was personally just thinking, like, he's sick. The beauty in those 42 days is it kept our family closer. There were aggressions, of course, because everyone was anxious and Papa was just tired, and but this is what I told the workshop that I did for Better Days. That was 42 days. I have been my father's daughter for 30 years. At that point, around 28, when I was around 28 when my father was diagnosed, I was 29 when he passed. But in those 42 days, we were so focused on getting him better, treating him well, getting the treatment that he needed, that I didn't even realize that we were I didn't realize how much I had lost just by not taking as many photos with him in the recent years.
You know, Elora, that story of you as a photographer not being able to take as much pictures with your dad, to me really hit home, because again, the reality of the people in our space, there are certain myths around it, like, why are you taking picture of me that I'm sick, is it because I'm going to die soon, or I don't want to be taking pictures now because I don't look good. But what you said really hit home. One of the things that you said was, take those photos now, right? You said something along those lines. Take those photos now. I'm going out on a limb here by saying that day when you took photos of different people, we all didn't know that the photos you took of a young warrior was gonna be the last photo of him alive. And I was so busy that day. I was on an autopilot mode. But he thugged me with his very frail arm after you took photo of him, and he said, Tita, I now have a decent photo by Ate Elora for when I die. And April 27, we lost him. And he had very strict because he's really strict. He had very strict instructions to her mom that the only photos that we will use in his wake are photos that came from me. Photos that you took. And I don't know what inspired you to have this shot of him being in the middle and everyone else was handing him flowers. I don't know where that inspiration came from, or was it just a gut feel for you? Can you talk to me about that window when you were taking the photo of Pio?
So I was really nervous to meet Pio. Prior to the event, Sophia and Kate were telling me like, oh, we should expect people in wheelchairs to attend the workshop. And then right before the event, it was Pio. And actually, what we were really building up for was his mother, Jem.
Yeah.
And they were telling me how Jem had already dedicated her entire life to Pio. And she was very much looking forward to it just because she wanted, we wanted to give her that day to feel beautiful and to put her on the spotlight because she's given so much of herself to her children. And then as the days got closer, I was really trying to figure out, like, I have no idea how to pose a little boy in a wheelchair. And they were telling me, like, oh, he can only do minimal movements. And prior to the event, of course, because, this is in the cancer community, I really wanted to make sure that I was aware of everyone's restrictions or, what they're comfortable and not comfortable with. So I really had no idea what to do with Pio until I saw him. And I remember he was the second to last because his mom was of the participants, right? His mom was the last and he was second to the last. And when it was going to be him, when it was already his turn, I was really nervous until I saw him against the white background. And instantly, I also have no idea how it happened. I said, could we put flowers around Pio? And then everyone was like, yes, yes, yes. And I remember Jem was the one who was below him pa. And she had the most sparkling eyes just watching Pio. And I remember I didn't even have to direct him. I got back to the camera and instantly he had a really beautiful grin on his face. And he looked so excited. Pio talaga was like a force of nature, really. And of course, I didn't want to move him anymore, so I just really tried to get different angles, and then later on, I had him hold the bouquet of flowers that I think he prepared with his mom,
Yeah.
and they held hands holding that bouquet. And when I was writing a post for Pio yesterday, that's when I realized the reason I did that was because I wanted to show that Pio was loved. I felt like the hands and the flowers around him was a symbol of how much he was loved. But then I realized more than that, it was also Pio's love, like literally radiating out of his body and, sending it off to the people who really felt his magic that day.
I just really want to thank you for making it special for him. For he talked about you days after of how much he learned from you, and I think that truly was your pabaon to him. Elora, let's talk about self-acceptance. How do you believe self-acceptance contributes to one's ability to navigate through the challenges like loss, grief, particularly in the context of caring for a loved one with cancer?
So there's this line, right? When you're young and you want to be in a romantic relationship, they tell you have to love yourself first because before you give love to someone else. I think it starts off with that, really. I always tell people, like, if you only allow yourself to love yourself, or let's start off with accepting yourself, accepting your entire body and how it is right now, you start to fall in love with it. And then once your cup is full of love, it overfills. And that's when it feels so genuine to give love to others. And you don't ask it for return. You don't ask anything for it in return because your cup is already full. It's already there. So you give love because there's so much of it inside you that it's so easy to give it to others. You empathize because you've gone through what they've gone. It may not be the exact same story, the exact same setting, but we all have our own struggles. And when you give that kind of love to other people, you stop your judgment.
Yeah.
Because you start to understand, like, oh, I've been there. It might have not been the same exact situation, but I've been through where you're feeling. And I know how it feels to not be so good about yourself. But here, so even with me, with Fat Girl Glow, of course, the goal is to be known internationally across the border and all of that. But I've come to that point in Fat Girl Glow where the first person who should be really affected by what I teach myself is myself.
Yeah.
If I don't believe it myself, then what am I doing here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the next person is just one person. Just one person. We started the camera confidence workshop. Of course, we had hope for 10 people, for 20 people, but we ended up with 4. And even from there was one participant who took me to her work, to her corporate job actually, and had me do a camera confidence in the workplace, in a corporate setting. And then after that, we had a few more camera confidence workshops, and then I met Kate. And then Kate was so driven, was so overwhelmed with the effect of the camera confidence workshop on her that she reached out, and here we are today.
Yeah, that's true. And one of the things that I really want to harvest is, Elora, your whole principle that every moment counts, which you learned the hard way with your dad's illness. 42 days, you can look at it in many different ways, like he didn't suffer long, but it was too short as well. There was one other message that you were echoing with us during the Camera Confidence workshop on top of your advocacy. Take as many photos now. As a matter of fact, you have a tagline that says, take up your space. I mean, take that photo now. Can you talk to our cancer community and the value of taking as many photos as possible now?
Take up space is actually with my partner in Camera Confidence, Sabina of High Smithy. That's actually their tagline, take up space. And it really is about taking photos right now. Because a lot of people who want to, you'd be surprised by how many people actually want to be a model. and But the sad thing is, before they become a model, they'll tell me like, Elora, take my photo, but when I lose 20 pounds. Or like, Elora, take my photo when when I have this mole taken out or something. And, I tell them, or me naman, I'll actually come up to someone I know, and I'll tell them like, can I take your photo? Will you be my model? And they'll tell me like, okay, sure, I really want to be a model, but when I don't have this gut already in my tummy and stuff like that. And then I get so confused because I'm asking you to be my model now because I am looking at you right now, and I'm not saying like, you know what, if you cut your hair, you'll be really beautiful, I'll turn you into a model. I want to make you my model right now in the same way that I wish that people would take more photos of themselves right now because I feel like every day is a journey. I feel like every day tells a story. So if you feel good about yourself right now, don't think that, oh, but I look like this and that and this and that. Because you can look back on that photo later on when you feel better about yourself and think to yourself, I came from that pala. And I remember that day when I felt so good about myself and I don't care what other people think. And that's another thing I teach people, right? When you decide to post a photo that you took of yourself, let it go. But remember the feeling that when you took that photo.
I love that. I love that perspective.
Remember what you felt when you took that photo because you can keep it in your pocket. Because people on social media, no matter if you know them or not, no matter if they're your family or not, will have things to say about you in that photo. But you have no control over that. They're allowed to make their own judgments because they're going through their own journey. Most of the time, people who call you out for posting a selfie are actually going through their own body image issues. And that's not your problem. But the only thing that you have control over is how you felt at that time. And if you kept that feeling to yourself, then you can go back to it.
And you can draw from it.
Yes.
Right.
And you really do. There really has come a time in my life when people would ask me, like, why did you post that photo? And then I'll actually, I don't explain myself, but in my head, I'll tell myself, like, I felt so good on that day. And I don't care how you feel. I posted it because I wanted to see the world. I wanted to show the world that I was happy.
True. And this is a gem that a lot of cancer warriors and cancer survivors should really harness. Like, while going through your journey, take as many photos because alongside with journaling, you're able to capture those moments of resilience, even moments of pain. And when tough times come, you can go back to those photos and say, hey, I survived this. I have photos of me bald or having, going through chemotherapy. Syempre nakakilay pa and all of that. But that when bad days come, I look at that photo and I say, I survived this. I can survive whatever it is I'm going through today. Right? Elora, how do you balance the advocacy of your work at Fat Girl Glow with your personal journey of resilience, self-acceptance, especially in the face of all these societal pressures, itago na natin sa pangalang social media. How do you keep that balance?
I like to focus more on myself and how I feel about, let's say, just one post. So many people are so aggravated by the fact that I don't post as much on my brand. I want to stay very authentic to the people who are reading it, because I realized a long time ago that somehow I have created an impact on other people and how they look at themselves. So I don't want to say any too flowery words that they can get from anyone else. I really want, whenever I post, that I say something that I really feel at that time. And if that's not how I feel at that time, if there's something that I can go back to, then I tell them how I survived that feeling or how I overcame that feeling. There will be people who don't agree, but the fact of it is I don't do it for other people. I do it for myself. I tell people who are close to me, bonus na lang if someone tells me that they can relate to my story. But it's not exactly the goal. I'm just here to it's really, my social media is an online diary. And of course, now that I'm getting more traction, there is, of course, that feeling of consciousness. But it really is just me telling my story. And if you can relate with it, and if you feel like I am telling your story by telling my own story, then I'm thankful that you shared that that journey with me.
That's such a great insight. Elora, as wearing your hat as a love giver, what message do you want to send to people out there like Jem, who's a love giver, in the light of all this self-acceptance and giving yourself time, pampering yourself, taking that nice photo? What's your message for our love givers who really just spend all of their days and nights and years taking care of their loved ones who are sick?
I feel like with my own story, with my dad, and now that I've met Jem and Pio, and although we haven't, I wasn't able to spend as much time with Pio, but, I have conversations with Jem, and I've talked to you about their own journey. That burden of feeling like you don't deserve things because you're a love giver, because you're dedicating your entire time and space to the warrior you're giving love to. You might think you're being helpful, but if there's anything I learned from my own journey with my dad, I remember my dad, there was one day when, in this journey, you always think that that might be the day that, our Creator takes them. But there was one day when it really felt like it might be. And I remember I had a job to do because I am a freelancer. And I said, okay, I'm gonna cancel. And then my dad, he was so weak, so tired. He said, don't cancel. I'm okay. Never cancel. I was saying that. And when he said that, I didn't know how to feel. Don't you want me with you? What if it happens when I'm not here? He said, don't cancel. And then, also throughout that journey with my dad, he hated it when no one ate, couldn't properly eat on his own. But whenever he finds out that someone hasn't eaten because they're too tired or stressed, he'll say, why are you not eating? You eat. And then later on, when he finds out that you haven't slept, why are you not sleeping? You sleep. So what I'm trying to say is that whole feeling of us putting them first is actually putting more of a burden on them. Because they don't want to make you feel, they don't want you to go through hardship. They really don't. They hate seeing that they're the ones who's causing this stress in your life. Why should we make them feel like they're stressing us out when they're already going through so much?
That's true. And really, you cannot sustainably take care of your loved ones if you don't take care of yourself first. That word, first. Take care of yourself first so you can sustainably take care of your loved one. Elora, I know you have been a freelancer. Should they want to, be part of your community or hire you as a photographer, I know that your subject are really people. Where can they get in touch with you?
So I actually have two accounts. So it's Elora Picson. Elora Picson is more of I do family portraits. I do intimate celebrations of like birthday parties and stuff like that, and do food photography as well. But also, if they ever want to see portraits of their beautiful selves when they're ready, they can message me at Fat Girl Glow Photo on Instagram, and we can make magic together.
Yes. So, and you can also contact Better Days because Elora and Sabina will be very much part of Better Days. So, thank you so much, Elora, for this valuable, insightful, inspiring episode with us. As we conclude our journey through embrace, love, thrive, navigating resilience through self acceptance, we've uncovered profound insights into the transformative power of embracing oneself fully. I want to underline that word, fully. Here are 3 key takeaways to remember as I talk to Elora. First, self acceptance serves as the foundation of resilience. It's very obvious. If you cannot accept yourself, how do you expect people to accept you? By embracing all the facets of ourselves, we cultivate inner strength and the ability to navigate to life challenges with grace. Secondly, the act of embracing oneself creates space for giving love to others, as what Elora said. When your cup is overflowing, it's so easy to love other people. When we love and accept ourselves, we're better equipped to extend the love and compassion to those around us, fostering deeper connections and relationships. And finally, self-acceptance is not a destination, but a journey, a continuous process of growth, exploration, and self-discovery. As what Elora said, whatever she espouses, she starts with herself first. It's through this ongoing journey that we find resilience, forge meaningful connections with ourselves, and ultimately thrive. So thank you. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of self-acceptance and resilience. Remember, the journey doesn't end here. Let's continue to embrace, love, and thrive together.